We start the final week pre-All-Star break. The Bucks in Orlando taking on the Magic. We preview those two matchups and take a look at the course the Bucks are about to chart. Is it the right call? We discuss coming up next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by the voice of the Bucks, or by the voice of the Bucks, man, Camille. Soon, the voice of the Bucks, joined as always by Camille Davis, as we thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day, for helping make the Locked On Network the number one podcast network in the industry as well. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with a bet on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. As I was about to say, and the segue I do in another job, joined as always by the voice of the Bucks, but you can hear me on the Bucks radio network each and every game. You can hear Camille every week as part of our Locked On NBA coverage and the Technical Foul podcast as well. And can we add Olympic enthusiasts to the mix too?
Enthusiast might be too strong of a word choice, but I dabble. I'll dibble and dabble. I was watching snowboarding yesterday for a bit, so yeah, I'll tune on. I'll turn it on.
Scale of 1 to 10, your Olympic fandom would fall where?
Summer Olympics is probably like an 8. Winter's probably like a 6.
Okay, that's better than my collective 4 and 2, and it's entirely around basketball pretty much in the Summer Olympics. But yes, we got the Olympics rolling on, and that leads to an interesting weekend. Next week already, where we're going to have the All-Star game in an afternoon setting, and then the Winter Olympics later on that evening. So once we get through the All-Star break, I don't know. I was going to say we're going to have a better idea of where this team is headed, but who the F knows? I mean, right now, just to give the lay of the land, the Charlotte Hornets are never going to lose a game again.
Man.
They've won 9 straight games for the first time since the late 90s. They're looking really good. And even pieces that they made and added at the deadline, like Kobe White, is going to help that team immensely. As Lonzo Ball coverage. And also, man, now you got 2 guys to run the show on and off the court there. An upgrade. I know the numbers don't reflect it this year, but it's an upgrade over Colin Sexton. So that team is starting to put it together at the right time. 9-game win streak that has propelled them all the way to 10th place in the Eastern Conference. And last night's win, or Saturday night's win, was against the Atlanta Hawks, who are now just a half game in front of them, 1 game in the win column up there. So let's start with Charlotte, because this is going to be the most interesting team for the back half of this season, I think, in the East at least. And I would say the Charlotte Hornets and the Bucks are the 2 most interesting teams down the stretch here, to just see what happens here. How high can Charlotte climb? What happens with the Bucks, right? Whether it's what do they decide to do, or what happens, right? Maybe they decide we're going to play and get to the play-in, but Charlotte's so hot we're not going to catch them, and other teams have kind of held us off. So those, to me, are the 2 most interesting teams moving forward. Where do you think Charlotte's ceiling is right now? That we mentioned they're a half game out of 9. They're only 2 games back of Miami for 8.
Yeah.
It is 6 in the loss column back of Philly. So I don't see Charlotte getting into the top 6. But in that 7 through 10 range, where do you think they ultimately finish?
If Charlotte, I don't expect Charlotte to, continue to bust off 9-1, stretches over the last 10 games. But if they continue to be healthy, because that starting group that they have over there fully healthy, it's tough. So I think they could be the 8 seed in the East, which the whole jumble here right now, like this quote, the play-in race, so to speak, in the East this year, might not be the grouping of teams that you would have thought heading into the season. But it does make this final stretch of games really interesting, because as you mentioned, the Bucks' next opponent is the Orlando Magic, a team they have not played not once so far this season. but a team that is 27-24. Meanwhile, the Bucks are 21-29. The Hornets are 25-28. So like with the way
you got the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and the tiebreaker. The Bucks have the tiebreaker over the Hornets. So I think Charlotte could get as high as 7 if things continue the way they have in Orlando. Well, both of these Florida teams really, where it just doesn't seem like they're able to really consistently stack the victories. I think Charlotte's going to be one of those teams that gets 2 shots to make the playoffs instead of just 1.
Yeah, I think they're going to – I'll be safe and I'll hedge my bets and say I think Charlotte finishes 8th. It's going to be interesting because we talk about where the Bucks are in Orlando for 2 games now. We'll take a look at that matchup and really the season for Orlando too. Like they've been able to take cover in the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers were not where anybody anticipated 30 games, even now where they are 4th, at least they're up to in the East. But early in the season, Cleveland was nowhere near where their expectations were. The Bucks were looking like an outright disaster early in the season. And there was a few that would say, well, didn't we think Orlando was going to be better? So they've been able to hide from that fact. But now it gets put under the magnascope, especially if the Bucks go to Orlando and make a showing here in these 2 games. So we'll take a look at that matchup in just a moment here. But yeah, I'll be safe and I say Charlotte finishes 8th and gets 2 cracks at it. And that's the important part too, is, as we kind of frankly grapple with what is going to be the route for the Bucks to take. In all honesty, Camille, this is a discussion we're going to be having probably until mid-March, maybe longer, right? Up until it's just like, well, doesn't matter at this point anymore. But until that hand is forced, it's going to be the ongoing conversation of, should you start to lose? Like, would it be in your best interest to rest guys here if you're still on the cusp of that? If you're going to win and if you're going to push for the playoffs, and I do get the sense that's what this team is going to do, you have got to push extra hard to get to that 7-8 line to give you the safety net. So again, for those that don't know, and we'll start to shift to the Orlando matchup coming up after the break here, but for those that don't know how the plan works at this point, I would say consult someone from Miami, Atlanta, or Chicago, as they'll have a lot of experience. It's something we frankly never had to worry about. There were moments last year where you were like, well, are the Bucks going to slip into the play-in tournament? But 7 plays 8. So the 2 teams that finish 7th and 8th in the standings at the end of the season, they play each other in a 1-game setting. The winner of that game is the 7th seed. The loser is put on hold for a couple of days. 9 plays 10. The loser of that game is eliminated. The winner will then play whoever loses the 7-8 game. And those 2 teams, the winner to come from that matchup is the 8th seed. So if you're on that 7-8 line, you can go 1-1 over 2 games and miss the playoffs. You can lose 1 game. If you're on the 9-10 line, you have to win 2 games, 0 losses to get into the playoffs. Now, again, looking at if it is something like, let's say Orlando, Miami, Charlotte, and you look at that group and you say, do we think we're going to go 0-2 against those teams? No, I like my chances. This year, I don't know if that's the year that I would say it with what we've seen from the Bucks, but it gives you a safety net that isn't there when you're on the 9-10 line. So again, if we're going to push for it and it's not out of the realm of possibilities to at least get to 8, because right now that's 3 games in the loss column separating you and the Miami Heat. You have games left against Miami. Those become extremely important. These 2 games against Orlando become extremely
2 more against the Hawks.
2 more against Atlanta. Like all these games, these are now your most important games if that is the goal for the remainder of the season. But should that be the goal, that's what we'll start to dig into coming up next and take a look at these 2 games and what to expect from Orlando after this on Locked On Bucks. Again, 2 games, another baseball series that we've got coming up here. So get used to that. We'll dig into that matchup coming up next. Well, time to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, where you can shoot your shot and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, every board that much more exciting. It's America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if your stats are right, you can cash in. You can choose from basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, UFC, and more. Plus, they've got features like early payouts and flex play, so you've got options while the games are still happening. Just download the app and you'll be surprised how easy it is to get started. It takes a couple of minutes to build your first lineup. That's all. You can make NBA lineups around players you already follow, pick more or less on points and assists, and it honestly makes every possession much more fun to watch. They have social features where you can see what other people are playing and copy lineups with one click. It's a cool way to learn and build better picks, and it's available in all 50 states, so it's easy for just about anyone to jump in. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after your first play of $5. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, Camille. The Orlando Magic, let's start with them first. This Magic team has been a disappointment. 27-24 on the season. So we got, I'm struggling with math today, 31 games left for Orlando, 32 games left for the Bucks. Where did you think Orlando would finish in the standings prior to this season beginning?
Top 4. I had them as a top 4 team in the East. I thought that the Desmond Bane addition made a lot of sense. They were going to continue to build off their defensive identity that they established over the last 2 years prior to this season, when they were second best defense in the league last year and the year before that. And I'm like, okay, now they add some more offense that fits, and they're going to take that jump. And the jump did not happen for Orlando's offense.
I thought they would be 2. We always see one team kind of like, oh, okay. We knew they'd be better. I didn't think this much better. I thought to some extent they'd be, I mean, in theory, Detroit, right? How they went from you gradually build and make your move. I didn't think they'd have the best record, but I guess what Boston is doing, where it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Although that's not even a great comp, because I didn't think Boston was going to be in the play-in mix. You know, we made the point, they're kind of quiet quitting with this roster, but I thought they'd have the second best record in the East, because I really liked Desmond Bane as a player, and I thought he was stepping into the perfect role to just supplement and be additional scoring and a guy that can provide shooting. Unfortunately, what we've seen from Orlando is, you know, a common occurrence, and it's what has taken place in Cleveland too, which kind of led us to a trade of a 26-year-old player for a 36-year-old with a spotty at best postseason track record. Is injuries have started to creep in once again. And I think we've made this point when talking about the Cavaliers and the yeah buts that oftentimes get associated with them. Like, yeah, but we weren't healthy last year. Yeah, but this happened from the Pacers. And, you know, yeah, but we needed to taste the playoffs and just get more experience for our guys. You can talk yourself into that once. When we're going on 3 years of having those conversations, you start to notice, like, I think the call is coming from inside the house right now, that there's something else here. And it kind of feels like that's what we're seeing with Orlando too. Like, well, injured again. Yeah, but there was injuries to Paolo and Franz Wagner. But the underlying thing is, whose team is this? Are we sure this is Paolo's team? Are we sure this is Franz's team? Are we sure these guys fit together? And there's just been that clunkiness from them this season that I tell you what, whether or not you think it is the best route for the Bucks, what happens to the conversation if the Bucks go into Orlando and win 2 games this week? Mm-hmm. So then you would be 23-29 on the season, and Orlando would be 27-26. 3 games back in the loss column suddenly of Orlando, making some work there. Who knows what happens with the other teams in front of you? If that happens, and that's a big if, does the conversation more so become, should we keep an eye on the Bucks? Like, what are they doing now that all of a sudden they've cleaned up some of these things? I've been charting the true shot attempts. The difference is starting to shrink. It's still the worst in the league, but it's starting to come down. They're making some growth there. But let's say the Bucks win those 2 games. Does more of the outside conversation become, are they starting to figure some things out here? Like, not in the sense that they're a contender in the East, but is this here comes the Bucks, or does it become more of like, what in the heck is wrong with this Magic team?
I think a little bit of both, but we know that that negative is going to probably lead a little bit more because of expectations that Orlando had, and so many people have already written off the Bucks. They probably won't even really believe in the Bucks, even if they do go in Orlando and win both of those games. I'm like, okay, well that's cute that they finally won some games without Giannis, but like no one is trusting in this team. Blah blah blah. I can already hear it. The thing with Orlando though, and thinking about like if the Bucks can go in there and get these 2 games, which is on the table, it's going to be tough. But in years past, my concern with Orlando is always like, man, you're going to have to, you're going up against a top tier defense. And they've been middle of the pack so far this season. And the offense is still bottom third of the league. So you have an opportunity there. But I think more than anything, people were going to point to Orlando and their fall if that happens with the Bucks winning those next 2 games, and then Orlando, continues to drop because Orlando has won their last 2 games. So it can feel like, hey, maybe they're starting to figure some things out.
There's a massive asterisk.
Oh, of course, but just the raw thought of like, oh, hey, they've won 2. But then if you lose to it, it goes back to like the inconsistency that their season has been so far, where it's like you win some, then you lose some. You can't really stack the victory. So I think more of the attention would be on Orlando, and Milwaukee won't get attention until they can actually rip off like.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be that post All-Star break schedule because it is very home heavy for the Bucks. It's 9 of their first 11. Out of the break are at home. And really, if you take away that first game in New Orleans to start things against the Pelicans, so that game is your first game out of the All-Star break on Friday, February 20th. Remove that from the mix. They then have 4-game homestand, 1 road game, 5-game homestand. And that 1 road game is in Chicago.
So it's a bus ride.
It's a bus ride. You're sleeping in your own bed. You'll play the game the 20th. You'll arrive, I would assume, into Milwaukee sometime 2 a.m., something around there on Saturday morning. And then you basically get to stay home and don't leave your own bed from the morning of the 21st of February all the way until Wednesday, March 11th, that you're home. Like for all we talked about with, man, the Bucks are away from home for basically all of those games around the holidays. That's something we hadn't grown accustomed to. Not just Christmas Day games. The Bucks always had a home-heavy schedule. It was something they always pushed for. Of people are back in Milwaukee. We would like them to be able to come to Bucks games during that time around the holidays when they're visiting their family. Didn't have it. So now you get at this weird part at the end of February into mid-March. That's going to be the stretch of scheduling that in all likelihood determines everything for the Bucks. Like, hey, even if you go 1-2 in these games, but continue to look competitive, I take that as a very good thing because at this point, the process is just as important as the results. And I think the Bucks have largely had a good process during this win streak, which finally comes now. You cannot ignore the fact that it's come against pretty poor quality of teams. I will certainly acknowledge that. But you've got to start somewhere. And at least we didn't see more of that carryover into those games against poor opponents. So, yes, the post-All-Star break schedule is what's going to determine everything. We reference it's home heavy. Those teams, the 4-game homestand that starts it, Toronto in an afternoon game, Miami, Cleveland, New York. So those are all teams that are in the top, 7 at this point, 8 in the Eastern Conference. Then we mentioned the Bulls road game, like Chicago. again, if your goal is play-in tournament, that is an absolute must-win. Did you see any highlights of the most recent Bulls game, Camille?
A lot of lowlights for Chicago there.
Well, yes, probably.
And on top of that, too, according to Tankathon, the Chicago Bulls have the 5th toughest remaining strength of schedule in the league. So when considering the Bucks play-in chances, the team that's right in front of them at 11, the Bulls are going to drop.
They're going to pass them.
They're going to drop like a rock.
So you got those 4: Toronto, Miami, Cleveland, New York, then Chicago, and then it's Boston, Atlanta, Utah, Orlando, Phoenix. So all but Utah in the playoff mix there in those home games. So all 9 home games, 8 of the 9 are against teams that are either playoff teams or equal to you, right around it in the standings in the Utah Jazz. So we've kind of laid it out there. I haven't gotten your thought. What do you do if you're the Bucks the rest of the way here? We'll get to that. And I mentioned there's a big caveat to add to this win streak for the Orlando Magic. It's a caveat that we are going to be applying to quite a few things here going forward over these next final months here that we have in this calendar, because I don't know about you, Camille. It feels like we're starting to hit a tipping point for this whole tankathon. We'll get into that conversation coming up after this. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. Even niche events like have must-become watch here when you're fully locked in to the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them along than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move, because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who could help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And that's what you'll like about Indeed. You get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves you time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get the job your premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. We want to remind you, too, Camille, the trade deadline has come and gone, but still plenty of reasons to sign up for our Everydayer Club. You can get on that exclusive Discord chat. We've gotten some show-specific asks and numbers to dig into, so that's a way to stay in touch with us. We did our survey last year asking you broadly things you liked and disliked, but this is another way for you to get that directly to us. A lot of interaction, especially around the trade deadline, that's out there on the Discord. And you and I have talked about some other special perks that we're going to add for that group of dedicated Locked On Bucks everydayers we've got out there on the Discord. You also get ad-free episodes of the show as well. You can sign up using the link that's in the show notes, and you can still get one free month through Wednesday with the code still a buck, with Giannis still remaining on the Milwaukee Bucks. So again, use that code still a buck and you'll get 1 free month of the Everydayer Club as long as you sign up by Wednesday, February, what is that, 11th?
10th, I think.
Whenever it is. Wednesday, the day 6 days away from removed from the trade deadline. Use that code still a buck and you'll get 1 month for free. Also, this is, I tend to have a lot of pet peeves, Camille. You haven't violated any of them so far in any of our years together, but it's usually revolving around word usage and spelling. And I just realized too, in one of our more recent ad reads, it's one of those 50-50 words. Do you use niche or do you use niche?
Niche.
All right. Well, I screwed it up. I've always been a niche person, but all right. I will readjust. Speaking of 50-50. What do the Bucks do here? Do you push? I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. I'll give an answer too. What do you do? You're in charge. You have the final say. You're the one that's analyzed everything and looking at here's where we could end up in the draft. Here's what we got to think in terms of weighing our culture and everything else. It's my call. Here's what I'm telling the coaching staff. This is how we're approaching these games.
I'd be shutting things down personally. I not to say that, hey, we're going to shut everything down now and we are going to try to get the worst record in the league, because you're not going to catch some of these teams that have already got the head start on you. You're just not going to catch them. But I would just use the rest of the season as like, hey, we're going to reset. So we're going to give playing time to some of the young guys who we've been seeing with the playing time, who are starting to pop, and be like, hey, these could be guys that we continue to play going forward, like your Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, Pete Nance, those four in particular. Let's see as much of them as we possibly can. Let's put them into some situations to get them some game reps and things they might not be known for doing, like AJ Green, for example. Let's start using AJ Green and pick and roll a little bit more often. Let's just see how those reps look. Let's get Pete Nance out here and let's just see what it looks like if we try him at the 3 in certain lineups. Not saying he is a 3, but just trying things with guys on the roster. If Giannis comes back healthy, and I have a feeling that Giannis is going to come back at the All-Star game. It just kind of feels that way to me now. So when Giannis does come back, we know he's going to want to play basketball, and he's not going to be down for anything around tanking or anything like that. It's not in his DNA. So I would sit him down and be like, let us help you. Help us help you. Okay. Well, we're going to need for the rest of the season. Like, we know you want to play, and we will do that. But no back-to-backs. If we're playing a rare 4 and 5, you're only playing 2 of the 4. You're on a minutes restriction when you do play. Like, you can get out there and get the run in, get some chemistry with these teammates. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is try to get the best draft positioning that we possibly can going forward. That's how I would personally attack it. And also use that as just like, Giannis, get your rest. Like, you've been playing a lot of basketball. The calf has been a problem. Let's make sure that you get right going into next season. That'll be my priority. But that doesn't feel like it's the reality of the Bucks, hearing Giannis saying like, hey, per Eric name, when I come back, I'm ready for a playoff chase. Like, we're going to get to it. So this doesn't feel like a team that's ready to call it in. And honestly, even if I did put that directive over the team, the players ain't going to try to not play hard. Like, I say this all the time. It's not the players that tank. It is the organizations that put things, structures into place to make it difficult for those guys who are competing to reel off those wins consistently. So I would go that route personally. But like I said, it does not feel like the Bucks are going that route. And I have now made peace with the fact that we're probably chasing the play-in now. Because, hey, now best case scenario, you chase the play-in, maybe you don't get it, and you're able to still jump up into top 5 in the draft somehow. So it's a possibility still, chasing the play-in, that you can get the results you ultimately wanted. But I would try to stack that deck in our favor as much as possible.
I forced you to answer. I'm going to cop out and say, give me a week, give me a couple of days here, because look, I mean, I think ultimately they're going to push for the playoffs. As of this moment, they are most likely to pick 9th in the draft lottery, in the draft through the lottery process. And, we went through the standings previously, but here's the other problem. This is a decision that needed to be made 2-3 weeks ago, basically, to shut it down. You look at, first of all, you're not catching Sacramento. You are definitely not catching Indiana, and what we've seen from the Pacers in the 3 games this season, especially the most recent game, and even with the acquisition of Ivica Zubac, the way they protected that pick, Indiana is going to do everything in their power to finish somewhere around where they are now, with at worst like the 4th, 5th worst record in the league, because the chances of them like 5 through 9, if they finish 5th, they're guaranteed to keep the pick, because if 4 teams pass them, they drop back to the very lowest they would be drafting. So Indiana, you're not getting anywhere near Indiana. You're not getting anywhere near New Orleans.
Right.
You're not getting anywhere near Washington, who already announced Anthony Davis ain't playing this season. We've heard Trae Young. We haven't heard outright he's not playing, but Trae Young hasn't played for them. Or did he play 1 game for them so far?
If he did, it was very recently.
It's very,
I don't recall him.
But regardless, he's not going to play a lot, if at all. So, I mean, right there, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 teams you're not catching. The Brooklyn Nets, you are not catching. That's 5. Utah, even with the Triple J pick, you're not catching Utah because of what they did when I mentioned the caveat for the Orlando Magic in this win streak. They beat up on the Brooklyn Nets, and they beat the Utah Jazz on Saturday night in a game where everyone played for Utah and looked pretty good, where you started to see, okay, this is what Larry Markkinen and Jaren Jackson Jr. looks like. And then they didn't play at all in the 4th quarter. And we saw the same thing with Lowry earlier in the week in a game they lost to Atlanta on the final shot of the game. So this is what Utah's going to do. They're just going to say, well, we know we can't outright rest Jaren Jackson Jr. because he was an all-star and qualifies for the star designation, but it doesn't mean we have to play him in high leverage spots. And it doesn't mean we have to play him 30 minutes in a game. So sure, we'll play him, but we're just cutting the cord once things are close, and that's how we're going to make sure. Dallas and Memphis are both teams. I don't think you're going to catch them either, because not only playing in the Western Conference, you've already got 2 more wins than the Mavs. You got 1 more win than the Memphis Grizzlies. Those are both teams with Memphis's moves. They're trying to maximize their lottery chances. Dallas basically doing the same. So unfortunately for the Bucks, if you're thinking, man, you should really be playing for a high draft pick, the process started too late is what it basically boils down to. And it was always a tricky situation because of Giannis and having him around and his health. And what does this mean for this summer, potentially, if we decide we are going to lose? I don't think this is the move the Bucks are going to make in trying to maximize their draft chances. Yeah. Where they are in the standings, those teams that are going to be tough to catch at best, I think you could fall below one of those 2 teams in Dallas and Memphis, but even still,
I think those 2 teams about to really put the tank on, though.
Yeah, but even still, great. You're picking 8th. And also, Chicago's in front of you right now. Chicago's going to drop below you. So I think, unfortunately, at this point, they're caught in no man's land. And if that's the case,
go hoop.
I think you might as well try to make the play-in tournament and just get more playoff reps for guys like Ryan Rollins and other young guys on the team. Get Giannis back. Be extra cautious with him, because if everything is moving towards, if we take Giannis at face value with that post, don't worry. Try to win. I know we can do a lot of things this summer. Do that, maximize that, and bring in other talent to this roster. And I'll commit, okay, but then we have to be even more cautious with you, because we cannot have this linger. We cannot have you re-aggravate that, and that eats into next season. So that becomes complicated. But ultimately, I think they're just kind of stuck in no man's land with those teams that are behind you. They're also right in the middle of the pack in terms of remaining strength of schedule. So it's not like you have a super easy schedule. It's not like you have one of the most difficult schedules in the league. And you already mentioned Chicago does have a much more difficult schedule. Teams like Atlanta, New Orleans, Portland, and Sacramento, who have already got a head start on you. Utah, they've all got much more difficult schedules than you have as well. So it's just yeah, like it's always going to be tough to convince players to tank. Like, not convince. You're not going to do it.
Yeah.
The point you've made, when they're out there, they're playing to compete. It's the trickiness of like what Utah is doing. And frankly, the league does need to address this because it is actively turning away fans, current fans and potential fans. The pick protections has gotten way too far out of whack. I mean, us having to explain what 1 through 4 and 10 through 30 means, the multiple teams that can get in on a pick swap too, of like, well, we get the best of these two, but the worst of this one, like all of that stuff. Your CBA is difficult enough as it is. It's gotten far too complicated, and it should boil down to, look, if you're trading the asset, you're trading the asset. No more of this. It's 1 through 8 protected. If it doesn't convey, it rolls over into next year. If it doesn't convey, then it rolls into 3 second-round picks. Like, no, you're trading the pick or you're not. We'll go as far as you can protect it 1 through 14 in the lottery
protection,
or you can protect it 1 through 4. That is it. There's nothing else on this, and that will at least curb some of this. It's never going to eliminate it, but again, the difficult challenge for any Bucks fan right now, and by the way, a 1% chance is what Basketball Reference has them at making the playoffs right now. They have the Bulls at just under a 3% chance, which, let's revisit this in like 3 or 4 days. Yeah, that's going to change. But they've got a 75% chance, basically, that the Hornets and Hawks are those final 2 teams. And they've got Charlotte at the 9 seed by probabilities. So a 1% chance to reach the playoffs right now is what they assign to the Bucks. And that's getting into the top 8. So winning the play-in tournament. They do give them a 5% chance, Camille, of getting the 10 seed here. But that's the math that's stacked up against you with the other teams that have either more difficult schedules or more of a head start. That at this point, I'm not going to say it needs a culture reboot, but at some point, the culture you want is a team that's competing to win and playing for championships, playing to reach the postseason. And the longer you let it fester, the tougher it is to knock. And especially with young guys, that those are the habits you develop. And that is the biggest reason why I said my answer is give me a week or so. Let me wait. Like, if you forced me to decide, I would say, you know what, just go for the play-in tournament, because if you're picking 9th, the difference right now, and sure, you could win the lottery. We saw Dallas with 10 last year end up winning the lottery. Other teams in recent years, who was the other? There was another team that was 10th.
The worst record in the league under this new format has not won the lottery yet.
Right. So sure, if you're picking 9, you can jump up there and win the lottery, but you don't win the lottery. It's the Pelicans. So watching what happens with New Orleans is even more important here. And that's the other part that kind of scares you off, is we've seen this trend of teams around 9 and 10 jumping into that mix. What if New Orleans finishes with the worst record or one of the 2 worst, and they just continue to slide and your pick jumps up to number 2 or number 3 and they're picking 9 or something like that? That's the other thing that's the underlying part of it to all of it for me, that just makes me at this moment feel like I understand the pushback for long-term vision.
Yeah.
But I just think it's best for a young group to try and say, we got Giannis, let's compete. Let's see if we can get the 10 seed. And then who knows? Let's see what happens there on a team with no expectations in a first-round matchup.
Yeah. I mean, if New Orleans can finish with the worst record in the league, they can't drop below 5, I believe that is. So, like,
correct.
Your best case scenario is that, the Pelicans end up with that worst record. The Bucks do whatever it is that they're going to do. And if that pick does jump up, at the very least, you're getting a top 5 pick out of it. And that jump could still happen theoretically, even with the play-in chase. So I'll end it just by saying this. Like, I know that there are going to be fans and everydayers out there who hear us talking about the play-in, and they're going to be like, what a waste of time. They need to just tank and this and this and this and that. But everything that we've already laid out as to why, looking at the standings, looking at what you might get, the Giannis aspect of it, what it can mean for the development of the young players on the team to be able to get the playoff experience. I said it after the trade deadline episode, I believe it was, which was like, I want to go on whatever journey the Milwaukee Bucks takes us on with Giannis at the helm of it. Like, that's what I want. I want to watch Giannis watch basketball. That Pelicans game that went to overtime, albeit it was a crazy game how we got there, but it was fun to have the rooting interest in the Bucks and cheer on that team. Like, give me competitive basketball. I say it often. I am born and raised in Milwaukee. When the Packers won the Super Bowl in 2010, I said, this is beautiful, but does not hit the same. And I already know it's not going to hit the same as whenever the day comes that the Milwaukee Bucks win that championship, because they have Milwaukee on their chest, where I am from. It's not Green Bay. No disrespect to the Packers, because Wisconsin love, but Milwaukee is different for me. And anytime I see my team step out on the court with my city on their chest, I don't want to be embarrassed. I want that team to go and at the very least compete. And it seems as if, at least for the last part of this season, we are going to get competition from the Milwaukee Bucks. And I can't be mad at that.
Right now, 76% chance that the Bucks would be drafting 9th or 10th, where they currently are in the standings. And again, that's with Chicago one spot behind you. Chicago's going to pass you. So what if you drop down to 10? You drop down to 10, it becomes I am really struggling to do math today, Camille. It becomes about an 85% chance that you're picking 10 or 11. Again, Dallas won the lottery last year with a 3% chance from there, but things start to get stacked against you and how difficult it's going to be. Right now, if you finish 9th, you have a 4.5% chance of winning the lottery, a 4.8% chance of grabbing number 2, a 5.2% chance of grabbing 3, a 5.7% chance of grabbing number 4. So your odds of jumping into the top 4, not great. And it really starts to fall off after 6 in those top 4s. Massive, massive drop off. So yes, let's just see where this team is at. Let's see if they can continue to stack some successes here, as Mike McCarthy would say. And let's see how they look against a better team with 2 cracks at it in the Orlando Magic. And look, if the 2 Orlando games are a disaster, and even without Shea, it's still a very, very strong and good Oklahoma City Thunder team. If that's an outright disaster, you go 0-3 this week and you run off the floor, then the decision is, yes, with the schedule we have out of the break, shutting it down. Like, let's limit the minutes for some of these guys. Let's get a look at our boy Ousmane Dieng, who we did not see yet. And let's just continue to work on developing these guys and seeing if we can maximize, as long as New Orleans is continuing to sink there, maximizing our draft pick. But leave your thoughts. I would assume most of the thoughts are going to be, why are you even talking about the play-in tournament? Yeah. Play for a draft pick. I get it. We're open to either side here. Leave your thoughts on what the Bucks should do, and more importantly, why you've arrived at that decision. As we wrap here, very long today, I did the Here District last week with Marcus and Chris Johnson, and I don't think that's released yet. I believe it's coming out this week. But we had the task of being 2 people that are paid by the Bucks on their game broadcasts, having to talk hours after, because we recorded that about just after you and I finished our live show. So it was a couple hours after the trade deadline passed, and that was scheduled in advance. And we were both kind of like, are we going to have to tiptoe around a big trade that was made, or are we going to have to reportedly the Bucks have traded for this? So at least it was the latter that we got to discuss, but still a very interesting trade deadline, and a lot of talk too on college hoops from Chris, especially, who follows all of those guys specifically. He shared some thoughts on some of the 5 most talked about prospects. I mean, mine are pretty much limited to the Arizona Wildcats, and anytime I talk with Chris and Marcus, make sure to wear some Arizona apparel just to remind them that the Wildcats won the final conference championship in the Conference of Champions. But yes, some thoughts from Chris, especially on those prospects that he has really watched quite a bit. And again, we're going to have to know how much we're going to have to dig into these prospects relatively soon as well, Camille. All right. We're recording this hours before the Super Bowl. Do you have any thoughts, predictions on it?
That I'm gonna be jamming at halftime. That I can guarantee you. I'm not gonna understand anything.
You're a Kid Rock guy?
Oh, don't put that on me now. I'm here for the Benito Bowl. I'm here for Bad Bunny at halftime. I'm ready for a vibe. But I think it's Seahawks over Patriots, and I don't feel great about saying Seahawks anything because I still feel a way about them. But I do think it's going to be an entertaining game overall. But I'm more excited about halftime, the NFL halftime show, than I am the game itself.
I honestly don't know how much of I'm going to watch. I've become more and more of a casual with football through the years. I'm a Packers season ticket holder, but it's tough to keep up as much during the season with the Bucks playing. And yeah, I mean, just even some of the names of like, who is this guy? Where did we get him from? Like countless people I've had to ask you about who is this player and why is he playing? So yeah, I mean, between my waning interest through the years and the fact that when we got to the Final Four, and is there another option of just cancel the Super Bowl with these 4 teams? Like, I don't know how much I'll see of the game today, but I suppose I'm with you. I hope the Seahawks win. I mean, at least our long national nightmare is over that the Patriots have finally returned to the Super Bowl, but
at least it's not with Belichick at the helm.
I mean, I guess I was rooting for the Rams throughout the process of, well, they beat the Bears and plus Devontae could get a championship. And at least it's not the Seahawks, Broncos, or Patriots. So fine. But then that fell by the wayside. So yes, we'll see if both of us wake up happy about it tomorrow. And then later on in the day tomorrow, how the Bucks approach and how they look in this game against the Orlando Magic. That will do it for today's show of Locked On Bucks. And as a reminder, one more time, we always thank you for tuning in, for subscribing and following the show as well. All of you that have subscribed, you got notified on YouTube last week when we went live with the trade deadline reaction. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is what's built for you. You get Locked On Bucks ad-free, plus access to the members-only Discord channel. And again, if you use the code STILLABUCK through Wednesday, you will get a month for free in the Everydayer Club. You can find the link to join in the episode notes of today's show. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make it your second listen, NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.